but I already sent a voice note on the correspondence now.
So that please do it again. That your love letter, be that love message. 3 minutes.
Sorry, no vex, no vex, no vex. Okay, so I was saying that foreign correspondence, because we are just gonna search internet, that's where I found all these things. So, correspondence literally means the exchange of information or news. Then, foreign correspondence involves the exchange of news, information, or whatsoever amongst nations and nationals, or amongst nations or different countries, and they are facilitated by a correspondent or an international journalist who represents their various media organizations in those nations. Did we get it?
Tona, please come again.
Please, you will not be angry.
Okay.
You help me come again. My network will break.
Okay, I said a correspondence literally means the exchange of information or news, things like that. So then foreign correspondence involves the exchange of news, informations amongst nations of different countries, and they are facilitated by correspondents or international journalists who represents their various media organizations in those nations.
Okay, so what exact example are we looking at now? Am I looking at a news reporter from America in Nigeria that is reporting on an incident in Nigeria? Does that fall under this category?
Yes, it falls under the type. That's more like, it depends on what you're broadcasting or what you're talking about. That one I was saying is about legal or justice foreign correspondence, whereby it has to do with criminal reports on criminal stuff, reports on criminal justice or stuff that has to do with legal reports. So I was not using the Abakiari's, is it Abakiari? Was Hush Puppy, his case that was talked about in the US. That it could be a correspondent talking about it right now, saying, oh, this is a situation about Hush Puppy in the United States court of law, saying he's been charged for internet fraud, stuff like that. That's more like legal or justice for foreign correspondence. Hello?
Okay, I think I get it.
Okay.
Okay, so Obaye is not here. It looks like what I've gotten from, other views in that regard. So what do we still do concerning this topic? Are we still looking at the current foreign correspondence and all that? Okay, we're supposed to discuss the list, the capital foreign correspondence and
Capital, sorry, capital.
Because these days now, I dey fear your intonation because it is too Frenchish in nature.
I'm so sorry. Mabino.
It's always I want to call words now, and I look like, oh, am I calling it like an Englishman or I'm supposed to call it like one French person? I beg.
I was trying to call it in the English form, capital, but capital is more like a language thingy.
Mm-hmm.
Please, is Joshua around? I don't know why he's running away.
Well, unfortunately, the guy is not here. But
Wait, what about the capital FC and code that people were posting about?
So
it's the same thing. That's Capital Foreign Correspondence, CFP.
But sorry, before we move ahead, what I can see on this, maybe we may need to differentiate something.
Okay.
You're looking at correspondence, and it's different from correspondent. Now, this capital, legal, red carpet, from what I can see, are applicable to correspondent.
Yes.
Someone. So, which is quite different from correspondence, and correspondence could be like in communication per se. So, this correspondence, will I say, could be an act per se in communication. But compared to this one is referring to the person, someone. So I can see capital correspondent, I can see legal justice correspondent, red carpet correspondent. So all these are referring to the reporter.
I'm opening another file again online. So let me check through. I'm opening another PDF file online. So I want to see what they're also saying.
Okay.
Because the questions I've been seeing is list and discuss the news types of news agencies. That's why I was shocked to see foreign correspondence.
Hello, I don't really think we should get questions that will look like this, in my own opinion. But again, it's not a bad thing to get that knowledge. So perhaps things will take this route. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So just for me, that's what I see about this. That it's not like we expect that the question is going to come in this regard. In fact, I would expect questions relating to, yes, international news. These are our common foreign news abroad, foreign news at home. So I expect that because we've taken that to a good, reasonable extent. And yes, the theories, I expect that as well. Then WICO, I expect that as well. For me, those are the three major ones. Then news agencies. Left to me, I expect the questions to come from those four angles. But yes, this is a foreign correspondence issue. I don't really expect. Let's just quickly close it up. Let's quickly close it up and go and discuss things that maybe other question or other question that relates to those core areas that we have taken in the class.
See, Mr. Razak.
Sorry, I want to even ask where she got that question from. Is it from the past questions or she just, forecast it from her own head or whatever?
Looks like she's not close to the phone, so we might need to forge ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so sorry about the back and forth. I actually was the one that asked the question because I got it from someone. Someone asked me, and I couldn't find an answer to that question. I had different thoughts though, but I wasn't so sure. So I asked Olaf first. Then before I posted it, what he was telling me was what I had in mind, but then I thought I should share it on the platform.
Mr. Razak, I think I'm still on the same page. See, correspondent.
So sorry for the confusion. I think the
correspondent is the person, yes, that is delivering the news. But correspondence is more like the information gongon that is being produced. A type of information passed. I know you're saying something about there's correspondence and there's correspondence. Yes, a correspondent is the person in charge that's the person giving out the information. But correspondence is more like the information being given out, not the person who is giving it out. The person who is giving it out is the correspondent.
Okay, so you have more like a container and the content, right?
Exactly, a container and the contents. The container is the correspondent. The content is the correspondence.
Okay, right. Okay, so unanimously, I should think the foreign correspondents are the ones Joy mentioned: the Capital, the Lega, the Red Carpet, and the War FC, right?
Yes, because even online, you have common types. You have capital correspondent. A capital correspondent is a correspondent who reports from headquarters of government. But if you say capital correspondence, it's
got my point. You know, she wrote FC with those capital and red carpet, and yes. But you know what I was trying to draw, my what's it called? My concern has been, are we discussing this as foreign correspondence or foreign correspondence? So if we're discussing,
we are discussing it as foreign correspondence,
as in NT, the reporter.
No.
See. So that was why when you said you were going with in regards of those capital, yes, then that means we are trying to look at it as types of foreign correspondence.
Yes.
Reporters. But if we're going with the correspondence, which is the art or the product itself, the correspondence.
Yes, the report itself.
Are we saying, okay, can you provide the reference where we have them capital red carpet as the types? Do you have the reference?
Because if you go on Wikipedia and you type correspondent or foreign correspondence, it comes out as correspondent. Then if you read it, it will tell you that common types of correspondence, you have the capital correspondent. Now it's telling you the reporter, the type of reporter.
And that's still what I'm saying.
Yes, but if you're saying capital correspondence, this is an information or a report that is based on the government or anything that has to go government-based activities in a nation. That's different from someone who is reporting from the headquarters of a government. I don't know if you understand. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just saw same thing here. What they have here is capital correspondent, right? But
exactly as Ibu said, one is a noun and the other is a verb.
It's a verb.
Sorry, I saw another one that is correspondence online now.
Yes.
Which is traditional foreign correspondent, parachute journalist, foreign correspondent, local foreign correspondent, foreign local correspondent.
I've seen it too. Yeah. Foreign correspondent, local foreign correspondent, and citizen journalists.
Okay.
Doesn't come up, I bet. Don't want anything stopping me.
Because
so like I said, I'm sorry. Someone asked me the question I couldn't answer, so I decided to throw it on us. Right? So yeah.
So what about if the question comes out as a compulsory question? What will you then do?
Well, I will write capital, legal, red carpet.
Exactly, I'll write those ones.
It seems more realistic to me, and I can explain than I would the other one.
All right, this fine. But I feel that either capital, local, traditional, foreign, whatever, it's intertwined. like I said, if you can defend your point. So it's, for instance, you're asking of what is international communication. You have to bring it up from what communication is, then bring it up to the channel and why you have to define international. So communication is just as sweet as that. It's just a matter of defending your point. It's just like a lecturer asking you, okay, what is A? You have to defend your answer first. Like someone was saying on the group chat that we are not in the project. Yes, you might not be verbally there to defend, but let your writing defend for you. If you put capital, you put legal, and you can't explain, it's a different ballgame than this person just packed. I know Prof. Sunday very well. That's why I'm saying that he's so very keen at marking each student point, and he knows if you just cram and just to pour and all those things. So those things actually count, especially for mass comm lecturers. That's one of those. If you can't defend your point, there's going to be an issue. So that's just the major thing.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So another question, so we don't waste our time on that.
Yeah. So, Razak, I heard you say something about the theories of international communication. I get probably we can do something on that. What do you think?
Okay. So let's go. Let's go ahead. Funny enough, those theories seem to look like those we treat in the international relations. So let me see.
You know you
our silence here.
Sorry?
I think the way you would answer modernization theory in international communication will be quite different because it's communication and not international relation. Although the idea may be the same, but it's the way you structure your sentences.
So are we doing theories now, you guys?
Yeah, that's what I want to move to. But okay, can we see previous questions on theories?
Okay, you know what? I think there's a question here that I can. Just 1 minute. Okay, so the question one that I have here is discuss the impact of changing media landscape on international communication.
Take that again, please.
Question number 1, 2017-2018. Discuss the impact of changing media landscape on international communication.
Changing media landscape.
Okay. The question will be really.
Is that theory?
This is theory. No. Discuss the impact of changing media landscape on international communication. Did you forget that?
Yeah.
That's not theory.
That's not theory the way it sounds to me.
What was it? Oh no, I didn't say theory. I said I want to read out the past question I have here.
Okay. Okay, well, we're trying to look at the theory, so maybe we can have knowledge about the theories. That was why I felt maybe, because for me,
that's modernization theory, dependency theory, hegemony, structural imperialism, political economy, imperialism, and world system.
Sorry, do you want to treat that questions for us? I don't know.
We are treating it.
So wanted to discuss it.
Okay, and we can do that.
Ola answered something similar today now.
Question number 4.
Global communication.
The appropriate example.
But this is different. Discuss the impact of changing media landscape in international communication.
I thought you said theory. I've moved on to theory question. Okay. Let me know so I can have direction. Are we still
I don't know which
one question?
Why that theory?
Okay. Question number 4, 2017-2018. Write appropriate examples. Discuss the strengths and weaknesses of any 3 of the following international communication theories. Number 1, modernization. Number 2, dependency. Number 3, hegemony. Number 4, structural imperialism. Number 5, political economy. Number 6, world systems.
Do me a favor,
So
can you post that question in the group? Can you copy the question?
Okay.
Post? You can't.
Oh yeah, let me type it.
If you can't type it, you can just snap and post.
If you can snap and post.
Snap it, but look me prime time tutors. If I'm a foreign.
No, now this is a private. Do we have snitches there? Like, who does that? You go and snitch.
Actually, we do, because the things that they used to post on this group, Fireman used to see it. So we do.
No, this is a private. Well, sure. If you are posting just question, not answer, question.
It's the same thing. No, what Fida said is true. Once you post,
we have snitches here. Proper.
Because we have snitch.
I'm just not in the mood.
Grown-ups. I'm a boy. It's very bad.
You can't be drama this night.
Okay, I have the question here. Can I post it to the group?
Yes,
I've posted it on the group already. Somebody has already posted it. Don't worry.
Effie way like you.
Someone has posted the question already on the group.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Coming.
Examples.
I think we have said it before that people should try to download Camcoder, the Cam Scanner. It will help us in
documents
like this.
I'm waiting the sound.
Thank God. Let me ask how.
What's that? Okay. Oh, sorry. Don't mind my chickens here. Sorry.
Okay, so let's go ahead. The first one is talking about modernization. Second one, dependency, hegemony, structural imperialism, political economy, and world system theory. Now, I think basic understanding is, to some extent, we understand what these theories are talking about. Then again, maybe the application to international communication, where how are this, or how does those theory as a basic affect the international communication? So I'm trying to see, let me just try and see if I can get the material.
This sorry, please. This number one.
We understand,
Sorry, please. Please, this number one. Are they talking about international communication in the internet age, or is something else?
We're about to do the same thing. By the time we review it, that's when we'll know what we're trying to do about it. So that's my own view. Any other person?
Okay. This number 4 that we are talking about, can't these strength and weakness be seen as advantage and disadvantage? Because modernization as a theory has its own advantage and disadvantage. There are some bad things that underdeveloped countries learn from Western world. I can see that as their weakness, and their strength as well can be the good things that the developing this thing learn from the Western world. From my own understanding,
Yeah, strength and weakness is always advantage and disadvantages.
That's what it is now.
Well, basically, I know from what we do mostly, we are supposed to present our what's it called, our response in a critique manner. And when I say critique for me, that means you take it as, after defining or explaining, you now look at it positive wise or negative wise. There are times where you need to conclude, There are times where you don't need to conclude, just critique normally. So you can go on to say, okay, so this is it, and this is the definition, this is how good it is, and this is how bad it is. So you move on. For some, you now need to conclude and say, okay, so well, in your personal opinion, this is what you think about this. There are times where you need to give that opinion. There are times where you just need to put it in that manner. So you're writing, saying discuss the strengths and weaknesses of any of the following. So yes, we're looking at both ends, advantage, disadvantage.
This one has no closure, just advantages and disadvantages.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. Okay, so modernization theory. Like I said, do we have anything on this explanation? I think Faida wanted to say something.
Okay, so
What
what I was
happened?
trying to say was that I feel like knowledge that everybody has from modernization theory is the one that we have from the economics perspective,
Okay.
which is basically following the footsteps of, that's basically the old Rostos theory thing, following everything that they are doing in the Western world and then adapting it in your own nation if you want to develop and be like them.
Okay, so we
International.
don't forget the fact that sorry, go ahead.
You're looking at it from the point of view of international communication. At least the best of my own knowledge, what it's basically saying is that international communication can be, like international mass communication can be used as a tool to spread the message of modernity and transfer those political and economic models of the Western world to the Southern world. So it's basically focusing
Sorry,
on
did you say Western world to the Southern world?
That's what I said too.
And it's just
Like developing
Okay,
world,
it's just like moving, the way they do in
Scholar
US
Cassias
to
has entered the group chat.
sorry everybody. It's not like moving from the way they do it in the developed countries to countries like Nigeria and co. I don't know if you get what I mean. They get fun. We're trying to focus on the
Is that
international
Kafila?
aspect of it. You saw what?
Is that Kafila?
Yeah, this Kafila.
Ah, okay, good. Scholar, you can go ahead.
Good scholar. So it's just like, like we all know that modernization theory is just like, let's say, like it holds the view that international mass communication can be used to spread the message of modernity and transfer the political and economic models of the Western world. We all know Western world is more like developed countries, right? To the Southern world, those like maybe developing or underdeveloped countries. It's just like, okay, now we have different ways of spreading news, different, they over there, they have different ways of spreading news. It doesn't have to be through only, the media on the, like through the media channels on the TV. You can spread it through social media platform as well. It's because they were doing it there. Of course, Twitter started from there, Facebook started from there. I don't know if you get what I mean. Am I diverting, Mr. Razak?
No, you're good. You're good.
So I think that's the way
what I think, or where I think we may limit the scope of discussion is the fact that just like Faida started, that you're just taking the clue from when we talk about modernization theory.
Why?
Okay, that when we talk about modernization theory, we'll come to think of the Rostow approach. I'm talking about development. Then again, you're looking at it where a situation where communication comes, into it's taken as the main channel or main medium. Like, okay, it could be used to transfer what's it called, the economic and social or political models from the West to the third world countries or developing countries. So again, now we've gotten the understanding and we've gotten something that will serve as a trigger anytime we think about or we see this modernization theory, when we talk about international communication. But again, so what are the strengths or what can we say is the strengths and the weakness?
Well, for weaknesses, okay, we're talking strength. Strength or weakness? No? Is it okay? For weaknesses, I feel like because of the whole idea of take things from the Western world, most African countries didn't look inwards. They were basically just focusing on those things that they could get from the Western world. And it led to stagnation for most of them. That's what I see for stagnation in development for most African countries.
Okay, so that's what you call the weakness, like Africans or developing nations wearing, looking inward. Is that? Okay, so what do we say is the strength?
Well, for me, I would say it's, it helps us to, dream for a better standard of living, which is directed towards education.
Please, what are you discussing?
Okay. With the news now, let me just explain what I mean by that. Like,
we're discussing modernization.
Exactly, we see how they do there and all of that. You obviously want to improve your own standard of living by, trying to, explore more opportunities. That is, maybe, for example, education. Like, you want to learn more now. You obviously want to know more. Your curiosity will be high. And as you are getting to know that, as you are getting to, acquire more knowledge, of course.
Please, what are you discussing?
I'm discussing strength.
Modernization
theory.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So, with that, it could also improve your, standard, or maybe allow you to dream for a better standard of living. Of course, it's because the way we saw the way we see how they do there, right? It's obviously want Nigeria to dream, for a better country as well. Maybe we can also do some things that they are doing that can improve our political economic system in some ways. I don't know. That's just how I see it.
Okay, so I think one of the weakness for me is the fact that yes, though the modernizers, which I will refer to those who are promoting what's it called, this modernization theory, couldn't eventually cover some areas or couldn't really take out some traditions. Yes, to countries like Africa, like us, yes, they were able to at least one of the reasons you see us taking things official was SUTOP, which came with the modernization theory. But there are countries like some in the Middle East per se, they retain their traditional or their Islamic tradition, so they couldn't really affect those areas. It's one of the listed things as weakness. So it failed in that aspect to promote the dichotomy of the modern versus traditional. So in those instances, they couldn't move ahead. For the strength, well, let me see. Okay, well, it has promoted. Sorry?
I said one of the critics. Modernization of the society requires the destruction of the indigenous culture and by replacing it with westernized system. So I think that is one of the critics.
You get
that?
So that's the critic. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but eventually it didn't for some of them, which should serve as or which could be seen as the weakness. Okay, eventually couldn't close the gap between the rich and the poor, like they have in case of Latin America. So countries like Brazil, eventually, despite the influence, they couldn't close the gap between the rich and the poor. That's basically what's capitalism. One of the weaknesses of capitalism eventually. Though they proclaim that yes, it would lead to a situation where the economy grows. But at the long run, what you see is you see few getting into the structural power and controlling the economy and all that. But again, if care is not taken, the gap will continue to be widening. Unlike the socialism that promotes a situation where, yes, in return, the government takes charge of almost everything. So the government determines, who owns economic resource and all that. So for me, I think if you think along that line of capitalism, yes, which goes with modernization theory, these are the things I think you see that will show us the weakness. Okay, so taking this, can we move to the next one? I'm not hearing from you. Hope I'm not alone.
Yeah, you mute ourselves. We can move to I think the next one we have is dependency theory because we have to the next one.
Okay, so dependency theory. Okay, so basically we have our understanding. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we the one talking or you? We're listening now, Mr. Razak. We'll come in.
We're all discussing.
Okay.
We're all discussing. So because
so dependency theory for intercommunication, I think, is very different from that of economics. In the sense that here
it's not really different when you look at the scope. The scope is still retained, but yes, it's just the way you take the discussion. Yeah.
It's saying that the theory states that there is interdependence among three variables: mass media, social system, and the audience. Okay. So basically, in the mass media, that's the news outlets, the social system, the government, and the audience, that's the people. So every one of them is interrelated. Every one of them depends on each other for international communication to take place. For everything to work hand in hand, they all have to work. For everything to fall in place, they all have to work hand in hand. That's basically what the dependency theory for international communication is saying. So to buttress on Faida's point, we all know that the social system is the government and they practically control the media. So whatever, before the mass media can upload or post anything or say anything, it has to be in line with the rules and regulations that the government have set together. So it means that the mass media is dependent on the social system, while the audience too are dependent on the mass media. They are all dependent on each other. And then, as they are all dependent on each other, it will help to fulfill, the needs of maybe the audience or the social system or the mass media. And, same happens and so on and so on. Okay. Emma Binu. So, okay, maybe when we finish, let's not be like I'm taking us back. Let's not be like I'm taking us back. I just saw a note in my book on foreign correspondence. So maybe when we finish this, I can.
Please take us back. Try that. Take us anywhere. So far, we are going to get the answer. Beg.
No. It's
are you guys in a hurry?
Now.
It shouldn't take us anywhere.
It's different from when we're.
Let's restrict ourselves to this area we're looking at.
That's what
yes, you can take us back.
I just saw it from my notes. And that's quite Esther.
Hello.
Sorry, please. I didn't know that I didn't get the call. Okay, so the dependency theory, what do you want to say? Or do you have anything you want to add? Like to buttress
Okay, so yes, it's you guys have said it really. Yes, the dependency theory was also relating to the cultural aspects, which now studies how production, distribution, consumption of media, and the cultural products were particularly relevant to the study. So this was what they looked at and trying to establish the links, of the transnational media and communication corporations. So we know one of those things that came with this idea of a modernization that now moved to this dependency after this, will I say the post-Cold War, was the fact that we had an international system that promoted transnational corporations. With those transnational corporations, which mostly the developing countries or always try to serve and look up to. Unfortunately, those TNCs set the rule of the game. So when they set the rule of the game in terms of production, distribution, and consumption of the media, eventually it makes them dominate the media and makes us developing become dependent on whatever is given. So again, what other things we will now need to look at is, okay, so what can we look at as say, and what can we say is the strength, and what can we say is the weakness?
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So weaknesses of dependency theory. So what I feel like to a large extent, when the individual starts to depend so much on the mass media to like influence decisions that they make and everything, then how do I explain this? You know that because they are all dependent on one another, the individual to a large extent, like it relies on the media to decide on certain things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So now they can the mass media can now become like a tool. Like if they now decide that they want to be like a negative impact on the government, they want to portray the government in negative light. Whatever it is that they project to the citizens can now influence how the citizens will now react to the government. I don't know if I'm putting it well, but
yeah, like if there is propaganda against Buhari government tomorrow, like it spread like wildfire and all. Yeah.
Thank you, Momiwa. Ashego.
It will say that to a large extent that Trump administration, it became so hurry because of CNN in particular.
Yes, exactly.
CNN for information. So you can say that the media was just against Trump's administration till when it falls.
Yes, and it was basically more of sentiments because realistically, if you look at statistics, he was a good president. He just had a bad personality.
Honestly, you're right, though.
He just had a very bad personality. He was a good president.
So that could sell in two ways.
Except the fact that he's racist.
Yeah, he is very racist. That is there. That's why I said he just has a very bad personality.
For me,
I think we're not doing foreign policy now.
Yeah.
So, we're deciding to discuss more.
Everything is international now.
But it's international communication now, Razak.
You guys are seriously going into...
Most of it is actually applied. So
thank you.
Like when I was reading about new world information, I realized there is actually history and something like so
what you're delving into is you're taking individual analysis.
Basically, so that we'll not deviate too much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
I think another weakness is probably the neglect. Hello, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, we are listening to you.
We can hear you.
So I think they neglect some news that go against the rules and regulations that guides the
government.
The government.
It's more or less like, to buttress on what you just said, it's more or less like we all know that the mass media is also dependent on the social system. That's the government, right? So to protect their own image and the fear of not being scrapped out, do you understand what I mean?
they will not want to post anything that would really go against the government. We all know Channels News, for example, has posted something like that before. I think when there was EndSARS something, and they were sanctioned for that.
Yeah.
Or when they invited one man that was talking against Buhari's government,
And
the
they
government
sanctioned
felt it was
them.
a threat, and then they sanctioned them. So something like that could be a weakness of dependency theory. So it will prevent the mass media from actually saying the actual truth of what happened.
Oh,
you can even use the EndSARS massacre. It definitely happened, but the government came out and denied that nobody died in it. So it could also be a weakness.
Yeah. Okay.
If you massacre, I told you. Unless you have evidence.
That is boiling already. Like she's
When
boiling.
you don't have evidence.
It's not fine that
Oh,
way. It's
you
something
are
that is talking
presenting
with
it.
my phone. No, it's Kafila.
Kafila. All right. So
It's
my
better when you have evidence. So. Hello.
What did you say?
Okay,
Please?
I think that there is a shortfall
presenting
when
things like that,
you
you
look
should have
at the
evidence.
government.
Who is talking now?
Yeah,
I don't even know. I think
MM.
I'm hearing MM.
Okay.
Okay. So since the three people are depending on one another, the people, the government, and the mass media themselves. So you find out that on the part of the government, as a weakness, the government might bring out policies or will not create an enabling environment for mass media to be free, to give out news without being sanctioned, right? So you find out the government is not creating an enabling environment.
So that is now be like the disadvantage, Abby.
Yeah, since we are talking
about wait, so are you referring to dependency theory?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, come again, please.
Okay, so since we are talking about weakness now, so I'm looking at the part of the government. The government do not create an enabling environment for mass media or news networks to strive. There are policies of government. There are so many, even in Nigeria, there are so many policies that have restricted free flow of information on the part of news agencies, news media.
Sorry,
right? So
you are not in tune. No. We're discussing what's it called? Some of these theories, and after discussing, basically the understanding of the theory, we're looking at the strength of that theory and the weakness of that theory. That was
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Wait, that dependency theory is divided into three.
Sorry, okay, you said dependency theory is divided
she's
into
actually in tune, no? She's in tune.
Okay,
because basically what we just discussed is what she's saying, except that she has actually said it in a way that we can write it down.
Sorry, I can't. I'm lost.
Let's Razak, let's hear his own point of view, because I think what is trying to say is that most media organizations, they are being regulated in Nigeria. We are being regulated by NBC, and to a large extent, they tell you what to broadcast and how to broadcast it. So since there's no freedom of press, and that's one of the problem of a new world communication order, so that most African states and Asia, we don't have freedom of the press, and that's part of the reason why the Western country is controlling the media to a large extent. But let's hear what Razak has to say, because as they say, there's just a thin line between theories of international communication and this economic this theory is also in international economics or something. Let's just give room for different divergent opinions.
Okay, so at times it's just that the basic from what we explained in regards of the basic, we're looking at. Sorry, who's talking? Okay, so the basic when you explained, you referred to the influence of the West on the South, and that's why we're looking at dependency theory, if I'm correct. So, but when you now get to the level of taking the elements, and you said in this regard, the weakness of dependency theory here refers to a situation where government is controlling the media content.
Okay.
Is that right? Hello?
Yeah,
Yes, I
that's
think
what I
that's what
said.
she meant.
That's what I meant. Since we are looking at 3 stages under dependency, which is the news media itself, the government, and the people. So I was coming from the part of the government as a weakness that they get to bring out policies. They don't create an enabling environment for mass media or news agencies or whatever to thrive, to flow, right? So there are policies every day about controlling what's out there in the news. And like Kafila said something about people are, so this mass media, they are being careful. So they are not sanctioned. They don't have to pay fine, right? The issue of the NTASC, it's what comes to mind when you're giving that kind of example, because it's a fresh news.
Okay, so I may not be able to say or to say this is my judgment, because no, this is a situation where we express our view. Left to me, what I see us talking about is dependency theory. Left to me, and dependency theory in this regard are theories that form the basis of this international communication, and they are like the legacies. So if we're referring to the third world now and how the third world is doing this without referring to the implication of what's it called, the West, because in the most of our discussion is between from you, in my own view, the discussion around this is supposed to be within the West and the South. So if we're not taking it just referring to the South as a unit, I'm not sure if we are still in tune, because the weaknesses for me that we should be talking about should relate to the dependency theory, not the example of these subunits.
Okay,
for better clarity.
My own view. Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
For better clarity, can you give us an example of what you think is the weakness for this dependency theory?
Okay, can we say favoritism is one of the weaknesses, in a way whereby the government will favor one media against one, just like Arise TV and Channel TV. I think this present government prefer Arise than Channel TV.
Like you still make the point that Razak is trying to, like, we are.
I didn't hear what you said. He told me again.
Local, but the theory itself, like, that is not like a substantial example of what dependency disadvantage means. Like, we should think beyond the Nigeria or local as something that is related to us locally. I think that's what Razak is trying to say.
The same thing. Just like, okay, during the Donald Trump regime, sometimes if one of the media want to ask him question and he'll be like, oh, no, I don't want to say anything. I would rather prefer this person to ask me question.
Okay.
This is some negative news that have been carried out against them, against Donald Trump.
Okay, Leko, so how is this, how does this relate to international communication?
Exactly.
I think, okay. I think the strength is also the same thing as the weakness. It is just the way we present it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
you
agree.
can use the
Something like
same
that.
thing
Yeah.
you wrote as your strength as your weakness. You just have to like support and oppose.
Yeah, yeah. That is genuine. It's just that for me, whenever we're looking at this strength and disadvantage, I expect it to relate to the relationship of this West and South thing. I hope you got this drift. That's, for example,
Really
I'm
pushing
looking at a
on
situation
behind you,
where
but we have not really said things that really don't I don't know. This dependency theory. Like it's like we're just turning around in circles.
sorry, Faida, I didn't get that.
For this dependency theory now, we've been able to establish the definition, yes. But for the weaknesses and strengths, we've just been turning around. Like we've not really been able to establish that this three firmly strength, this two firmly weakness.
Okay, so I wanted to cite one. Okay, in this dependency theory, when considering, for example, what goes into the content, in the international, considering the dependency theory, in the international space, when you get news at times from the international screen, you see a situation where they are presenting the position of this country. And when I say this country, I meant developing. And you know, they will decide to sideline some content. You can't query them. Do you get that gist now? For example, you're looking at some specific figure that we're supposed to get their view. But because you know maybe their view now may be contrary to what you expect to see, is international space, and this country is of less relevance, you know, considering because based on the nature it's developing country. Yes, you can decide to sideline that content. I hope you got that now. That was what I was thinking of.
I didn't get
surprised.
My network.
You didn't get it. Okay, so like I said, in the international space, when you're getting content of news, let me look at this. I would have loved to see a case where, okay, let's say, for example, we're talking about debt burden, and we're supposed to have like CNN presenting the case of Nigeria's debt burden. Now, it's coming to present this case and meeting, say, maybe people in the streets. So what do you feel about Nigeria's debt body, you know, of this size? Apparently calling the figure to that person, you know, person says, oh, this is ridiculous, and, you know, and we're not seeing anything, nothing is being done and all that. You know, that would be a complete bad news, and it's going to shape, for example, it's going to change the orientation, what's it called, the creditors have for that country. Like, okay, so this country is really bad. It doesn't manage its credit so well. And so the next time the country is coming for debt, I mean, for loan again, is being given some other strict rules. That is the impact anyway. But the content now, because of the dependency nature, it gives those with, will I say, the imperialism, or those in the neo colonialism, to have this influence, being the developed nation, to decide how they want to present your news. Okay. In that case, now they may decide to leave out those who are supposed to speak, you know, with insight into what that content should look like. But they will give you someone in the country, yes, but that person with a wide varying view, discussing things that will be negative eventually. If we go into this Nwiko, I actually recall Professor Olontola talking about how Nwiko tried to to bridge the gap in this regards. But one of those things they said was that, and Professor Olorun said was that even within yourself, those media, they still produce bad news about the entity. And how do you see these guys coming in without picking those bad news? That's a digression anyway. But the main thing is they know where to get those good news, but they would rather go to where they want to get the bad news and paint you bad.
Okay.
So to still give you the position that you're developing, and you can't dictate, and you can't even challenge them. So I can see a situation where we have the comparison now of how the West will project you being a developing nation, considering the fact that you are dependent on them. And though that was, I think it was under one of those things we discussed under structural imperialism about even things you will use as media here are coming from them. The language, the culture, even the technology you use, they're coming from them. So to show you how much dependence you have to this West. So any other view about this? And they also have the right to, maybe a strength, they have the right to dictate, to depict, themselves as superior, based on the reach they have. So, any other one? Or do we have contrary view?
Oh, sorry.
Or I'm not clear enough.
The questions now, the strengths and the weaknesses. Since he said with appropriate examples, are we going to write it like point or story?
Okay.
He specifically
For
said
me-
3-3, so it's going to be point 2.
This is what I'm saying. I
Were
didn't
there
see
three advantages, three strengths and weaknesses?
No, with appropriate examples, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of
I
any
think
of
we're
the
just speaking
following.
any of the
Yes.
three now.
Oh,
Yeah. So
Oh,
it's
any
not
of the
like we are
3.
supposed
Oh,
to.
okay.
yeah.
Any of the three. No.
So are we going
Yeah.
to write it like point or story or how?
It depends on how resourceful you are. If you have the resource to list it out, good.
I
Okay.
think
But
you
again,
point them and
in
explain
order not to be boxed,
explain them.
Okay. Okay.
in order not to be boxed, you can decide to discuss it. But yes, if you're that resourceful, for example, for me, I try to do one thing. If I look at my question, I try to list out things I can write about it. So if I have enough, good, I will go into it. If I don't have enough, it means by the time I'm writing, I'll get bust up. So I'd rather look at those ones I have enough first. First of all, address those ones, and before I go back, because at times, in the course of going back to it, you recall some other things you can write about it and you can add to it. But the rule is, first of all, go for those ones you have more resource about to write them first, then go to those ones you have less. Perhaps when you're going back to it, you have additional things to write about it. So again, if you're listing, the concern is once you start the listing, then you should be able to list for every other 3 that you are choosing. But to be on the safe side, if you know that listing will work for 1, will not work for 2 and 3, you'd rather go into discussion. So just discuss, have your points, then discuss it. Like, okay, this is the strength and this is the weakness.
It is discussed.
So, I'm going to the other one. Sorry?
Number 3. Is it
Hegemony.
hegemony or whatever?
I think it's called, or it's usually called hegemony.
Okay.
Okay, so hegemony. Yeah, find out.
Okay, so for hegemony, So in international communication, it's based on the idea that powerful nations have the capacity to exercise more of like an intellectual or moral direction over like large cities. Like they are using their influence to basically control the international mass media space. They are controlling what can be reported and via which medium can you report that thing? Because the large international like agencies of the world, they are the ones in charge. So to a large extent, they are going to be controlling what can be reported, in what ways you can report it, like the information, the medium, everything. They are the ones in charge. That's it for, if you are looking at it from international communications perspective. That's what I feel for hegemony.
Okay, so I agree with that too. I agree with that. Any other contribution?
Okay, I was about to see, does any other person have anything? We're talking about hegemony. Before in Kalima,
Do you have
does
anything?
anybody else have
Okay,
anything?
Farida, can you explain hegemony again?
Okay, so I'm saying that normal hegemony is like one nation controlling everybody, flexing power. So I'm not saying we are looking at it from international communications point of view. It's basically like powerful like nation using their influence to control what should be reported in the international space, how it should be reported, and what mediums like to use. Because if you look at it, the four big agencies of the world, they are all in the West. AFP, TASS, RETA, UPI, they are all in the Western countries. There's none in Asia, there's none in Africa. So to a large extent, they are the ones that are still going to be controlling what news like they are reporting in any aspect of the world, how they're going to report the details that they want, the perspective that they are seeing that nation through. It's still going to be them that are controlling it. That's what I feel for hegemony theory in international relations and communications.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. So I think
MM
it
is
has
saying
this
something.
dominant social nature. Okay,
MM is typing.
Or typing.
And she's
Okay,
saying
I'm not
something
close to
here.
typing now.
She's writing the definitions of everything. She has been writing it since.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me take a screenshot of it.
Okay, so for me, yes, hegemony, whenever we refer to hegemony in international communication, in this case, it has this notion of dominant social structure. So where it's dominating what is projected in the communication. So yes, you mentioned it right. It controls more of what goes there. And again, you still have this flexing of the muscle, like, okay, so this is how this thing should go, rather than the other way. So one of those things I still, these things, I mean, these theories, yes, when we know that looks alike, I think it's just some aspects of it that are being tweaked. So hegemony, yes, it's not like dependency theory where we depend on them on what would have will come out. But eventually, in this case, this is the big brother. You can't just report things badly about them, whether we like it or not. If the West is reporting today, when you see our news, you hardly have a situation where our correspondent is going there to bring it out how it is. No, it is we will wait. It is when our brother, when they bring the thing out, that's when we copy. Say, oh yeah, this is channels. We just started switching to say this is what CNN reported about US or UK or BBC about UK. I could recall I saw this news on BBC talking about Tiwa Savage about this blackmail of sex video thing. So to my mind, I was like Sewa Savage from BBC, but talking about sex video. So why would BBC be interested in taking an individual in a developing country in that regards? So again, they won't talk about Sewa Savage, for example, getting married. That's not news to them. But again, because it has this bad image of the environment where she is, contributing to that, which in the wider perspective, you know that what that simply means is, she's having issue despite her influence, in the international space, as a renowned musician. She's having an issue at home where she is, which is a developing country. So these are some of the things when you interpret or go deep into those things to see what the ideology looks like. And yes, it shapes the process of the media and the communication production, the news, the entertainment. So it could be argued, to see how this now comes to be advantage and disadvantage. So what can we say is the advantage? What can we say is the disadvantage? Or sorry, what can we say is the strength? What can we say is the weakness?
I can't even see any strength for developing countries.
Yeah.
Into that, to get the strength is quite not easy like that.
Okay, so I will look at it from this point of view. Now, what I want to say can both be a strength and it can be a weakness. In the sense that there are some countries that are very communist and enclosed to a large extent. Look at China, for example. During the coronavirus thing, they covered that news for a very long time until they couldn't hide it anymore. And then international news agencies started to close in. Thanks to those international news agencies that were doing under G things and trying to push out what was going on in the country, you would have just seen that things were spreading because people were still traveling free out of their country. And the thing was going around the world. People did not know that anything like that was happening. But by the time that news agencies across the globe started to close in on it and the news was everywhere, that was when they now shut down their country, and then they now started to really focus. And but by that time, it was already late to that extent because people from their country had already traveled around the whole world. I don't know if you get sharp, but I think you get the idea of where I'm coming from. And Ma?
Please, can you say it again?
What she was trying to say is that during the COVID, COVID outbreak, so to say, China was trying to cover it with as much as possible. But thanks to the international media like CNN and all that, they were able to know, and then they were able to let everybody know, and then more like they exposed the news. Okay. So thanks to the fact that we have powerful, news the media and what they used to call them. Yeah, do you understand? If not, it could have been worse than it was, because until that news was out there before they now closed their borders.
Yeah,
they were trying to protect their own image and their country as well, so that you won't be like, China brought about. So I hope you guys understand.
No, what if, for example, that kind of COVID started from the western part? Will the story still be the same thing?
This is what we're saying. Imagine if that thing had broken out from America. The news would have been out faster.
Okay.
Because America is not a communist state.
Yeah, that's true.
China has a golden wall that they use over $60 million per year. As in, the security is tight. America does not have a golden wall. Social media is everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I understand.
But that drift, saying if it is America, it's still one thing I would say in terms of hegemony, it wouldn't have been presented in the way it was presented. I still agree. I mean, I still want to.
But it will still be known.
No, we're not saying about the way it was
They will just
presented.
try to
We're
conceal
saying
it.
the
Like,
news will have been out faster because America does not have
The news was out.
they don't
just
have
like the way they will portray it, they won't make it
Sorry.
look like it is a killer
Sorry,
disease.
let me say this. Let me say this. As far as COVID was concerned, maybe we don't really know. For me, as at that December, it came out maybe around November or so now. But as at that December, it was in
yes,
news.
November.
I recall I came to school to submit documents to the secretary, and she was talking about Lassa fever. You know, she was just like, Kilawari, you. And I was like, okay, what's that? Said, this Lassa fever. The way it's killing. I said, Lassa fever. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And I said, which one? I said, have you heard about Corona? I said, Corona, which one is Corona? I said, well, that's presently in China. I said, hey, wow. That was as far back as December. You know, we resumed in January. That was what I told her then. So, I wouldn't say to my surprise that we didn't really take it seriously. But if you are following the news, it was in the news. As at then, yes, it was just in China.
I don't think you are getting what we're saying, no.
No, what I'm saying is
because
that
it is out in December does not mean it might have started in January.
The news was saying
it
that
might have started since January 2019 that nobody knows about
news. To a large extent, it was a controlled news. They were controlling that narrative, and they were chasing down reporters that were trying to push the correct information out of China.
But if that was the case, do you know how many classic reports, or how do I say it? They have a way of classifying those information in US that will not go out, or that has level, you know, to access to those information.
What we're saying is that because China has a moving wall on social media and all these things, to get things out of China is not as easy as it is when Americans can just pick up their phone and tweet anything out.
Okay, let me say this.
Try to get it from their ideology. You know, she said it earlier that China is communist.
Wait, there is communism. There is what's it called? Would I say the free economy or free market or democracy? Yes, but in terms of information, every other country has the rights, you know, to maintain how the information is disseminated. Now, when we now take it to what we have, the hegemony, where, you know, the superpower, you know, is now in charge of the information. What that simply means is for superpowers, they have what it takes to control the information, and you can't really question them. This is the hegemony now. But in their own case, it's easier, you know, to make you tell the world about that story. In fact, if you don't want to tell the world, they will come and show the world that, okay, this is what is wrong in this developing country. They have it, and that is the basic of what we're doing now. But for them, and we've talked about this, you know, in their own reports, you don't have your correspondents going there as a developing country, going there to bring the information as it is. But they will have their own correspondents here, reporting this exactly the way it is. And this is the hegemony now. So I don't want to say we're going into the China thing. Yes, even though China, yes, depending on the scope that we're presenting it, we can present it as a developed country, we can present it as developing country, but we know in foreign policy, it's a developing country. In some other regards, we can present China as a developed nation. So again, yes, I agree with this wall you talked about, but lo and behold, there are foreign correspondents in China that report cases as it is to countries like US. or UK. They have their envoy in that country. And that's why they are in the international system. If they don't have the envoys, I'm quite sure one way or the other, it's either you would have sidelined China in the UN. But China is relevant in the UN today because, yes, based on the influence. And the same way, China must have allowed, these countries to come into, US and the likes, to come into the country to get some information as it is.
So now we just lost one amazing point. Hey.
Sorry?
We just lost one amazing point. Give another one to replace that, I beg.
If you think it's a point, I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying is, in this discussion we have, hegemony one, is about, this strong one, playing the role of the big brother and controlling the information. This information that is controlling, again, can also go to the level of controlling the cultural and traditional aspects of the developing country based on what should be reported and how it should be reported. So, but yes, the example is there, like you mentioned, but well, we may need to also take our time to look at some other examples that we have maybe in the text or so. But taking the case of the COVID, that was why I was just like, okay, yes, we can play the scenario like, okay, this is what it looks like, to us. But I made the position that right from the time it has started, there were people or there were other envoys going into Wuhan to get information as well. But in US, I can tell you things happen and they will tell you it is controlled. You can't even go in to get that information. You can't, and that is the hegemony we're talking about. So for me, that's what I feel about it too. Okay, so if there's any other one.
Try that.
Sorry, please. I've
What's the next one?
Please, we still need weaknesses and strengths for hegemony. We don't have any as it stands. So.
Okay, so when we say the strengths, yes, one of such is it could be used as the tool to change the culture in the developing country, at least for the fact that yes, they want them to do something better.
Is it a disadvantage?
I said the strength. The strength based on the power that is being exerted by the West. Yes, they can change ideology of the states, of developing states, or those other states that are not superior in these regards. So they can make them, subordinate clause where they dictate what is taken as intellectual and what they can take as would I say, base of communication, knowledge in their institutions. And based on what's it called, sociology. When we say institutions, we talk about the school, religious body, and all that. So, what kind of example will I take as this advantage now?
This is sounding more like a weakness now. If because of their power they can influence what they see to be right, wrong, intellectual, it's sounding more like a disadvantage. Sounding more like imperialism.
Yes, it is more like somebody said it earlier that it could be plus and minus. It could be strength and weakness at times. Debate depending on how you present it. If you want a developing country to start acting in a way that you feel is better, for example, trying to make them educated, and you're saying, look, you start, okay, if somebody must report, if somebody must do this, it has to be educated at this level. The person has to dress like us, to make it in a better way. Yes, it could be a strength. But again, is when you now go back to the other side and say, but to these people, what they hold as culture and tradition, is being eroded or is being taken away, then that is a disadvantage or a weakness. I hope you got that.
No.
Okay. I mentioned, like, for example, the way our news is structured and presented. Okay, perhaps, okay, Arise, for example. You heard them talk about, I could recall when Dr. Ibrahim Abi was saying that, okay, so do you see Arise presenting news with nationalism? No. But they in their own regards, eventually, even the style of production looks like they're tailoring it, to the likes of, say, maybe CNN or maybe, say, BBC, which is the culture now. So they've taken it like they are not even coming there to, for example, dress like us. They are going there dressed in a suit and all that, which is still, taking the other culture. Yes, this could be a former way or a better, or what they think or they've sold to us as a better way of structuring the news. But again, the nationalism or the national ideology is being eroded, which is the weakness. So we don't see them come to talk about news about Nigeria being great or Nigeria being a great nation. They won't come and talk about, so we recorded a positive, what's it called, record in terms of inflation or in terms of GDP. No, those ones don't come to play here. But what comes to play here are, the issues compared to the Western world. So why would this happen in this part of the world and all that? It's still not clear? Hello?
Still not clear to me. I don't know about all that, Sha.
Okay. So what part is not clear now?
Everything.
Talk about, okay, so you understand the aspect of hegemony, which is, yes, when we say hegemony, we refer to still the West per se, and US, for example, in the picture. Now, we're looking at taking Arise, and like I mentioned, it was mentioned in the class with Dr. Ibrahim, saying the way Arise News, take Arise News as a case study, does Arise project Nigeria's ideology or identity or nationalism in terms of the news that is being presented or heard to the world? And I could recall maybe in the class that day we all said no. So what you see Arise produce, even the intonation, our English or the presentation, I could recall somebody mentioned even that song of maybe Abiola or so. Looks like that of the UK also. So now, what this simply means is we are taking their own ideology culture based on the hegemony as something that is superior. And that is what Arise stands to project, to try to benchmark with the likes of the BBC and CNN. So other than that, yes, it looks like they are benchmarking and they are truly an international news media. But take it down to what is expected of when you see a BBC. You can say based on ideology that it projects the UK being, the monarchy state and being, the imperialism aspects. So you now look at Nigeria and say, Arise and say, okay, so what is that value or what is that, what's it called, virtue that Arise stands for in terms of this country? You can hardly pick your hand. Somebody said at the end of the day that it was, what's it called? Herdsmen that is what you can really say about Arise. That it's basically about the needs of experts. So that's tell you. So what eventually is the do we see Arise projecting Nigeria as with the national interest? No. So that's a disadvantage, which is due to the hegemony. So you say the advantage, yes, Arise is, you can say, is projected as an international media based on, yes, the accents, the way, the structure of the news and the presentations, the production. Yes, based on the hegemony, that is good. But it has left the national interest. It has left the national ideology. That's the disadvantage for me.
Okay, I think I get it now. Thank you.
Okay, so it's taking 3. Which other one now?
Economy.
Are we doing or we stop here?
Political economy. Or
Political
structural.
economy.
Yeah.
Where is Fider? I'm not hearing from her again. No. I hope she has not run away.
Aderera.
She went to pee. I'm the one listening.
Coffee.
Yes.
Continue.
I should continue, okay? Me, I'm listening. I'm listening. Don't worry. If I'm to come in, I'll definitely come in.
Okay.
Okay, so political economy, I don't think I have anything on that, so from my own end. But this being
or any other one.
Structural imperialism.
Okay.
So structural imperialism, from the understanding, talks about 2 things mostly. They used to say it talks about is it the sphere and the circumference, and then the center and the periphery. So, in the sense that one is really still dependent on the other, but basically the difference in this case is talking about the center and the periphery. So the core.
Western and development.
Sorry?
I said Western and development.
Okay, so the highly developed core and a less developed periphery. So when you say core, it's still referring to the center, but the core is, or the center is regarded as the developed or the highly developed, while the periphery is referred to as the periphery. So, I'm sorry, the less developed. So in this case, why it's structured is because the dominance relation which cut across the nations based itself on
Hello? So if you
center. Structural imperialism. Welcome back.
Okay.
Okay. So when you say the structure or the structural imperialism, like I mentioned, is really about, it's close to what's it called? Dependency theory, but in this case, it's just bringing in the structure part. So the core remains to develop, and the periphery is about the less developed nations. So we have other things that the core now uses the less developed for in this regards. So we have the mechanism of the structural imperialism revolves around 2 forms of interaction, the vertical and the feudal. So when you say vertical, you refer to the principle maintains that relationships are asymmetric, that the flow of power is from more developed states to the less developed states. And the benefits of the system flow upwards from the less developed states to the center. So, but for few interaction principle states that there is interaction along the spokes from the periphery to the center of, but not along the rim. Okay, so what I can say about this, when you say the interaction, there are times where, yes, the flow of resource move from the developed, the developing, the less developed to the developed. So you see them coming to the less developed to get raw materials. And in return, they come to sell the finished goods to the periphery. But again, it looks like a situation where the developed is helping the less developed. But the fact is, the developed is actually extorting or taking more from the less developed states. So this has affected several other aspects of what's it called, their interaction. It could be the military, it could be the communication. So again, you look at how the peripheral depends on the core for things they will do. So just like things that we mentioned earlier, we have the peripheral, or what's it called? The periphery depending on the core, which is the center for things that they will do, which is the cultural imperialism in nature. So it's so very close anyway, very close to dependency theory as it is. The only difference for me is just the structure thing that is, or the structure theory that is being introduced in this case.
Okay.
So can we move to any other thing, or we're calling it today?
There are plenty topics, so are you people tired?
I don't know about that, though. We are taking coffee.
Because people are not talking again, that's why I said maybe you guys want to, maybe you're tired.
We can switch topic now. Maybe people
discuss the impact of. Please, let's do this one. Discuss the impact of changing media landscape.
Okay, I just want to mention something like in my other program, we used to have, during the exam, we used to have this discussion for hours. It could be for 5 hours, just to cover things that we'll have the next day. Although,
if you don't mind, we're available. Why not?
It doesn't look like people are talking, so that was why I was like, maybe they are tired.
Razak, I have spoken. I'm ready for a next one.
I don't know about anything. Be specific.
Please.
Okay, so impact
the number one question.
Landscape. Sorry?
Number one. Can we
changing media landscape? Although we didn't take it, but let's see if we can get materials on that.
You know the one that is it Mr. Sam Abi? Is that not the one he taught us?
Unfortunately, I don't think I was in the class then.
That 21st century lecturer.
I can't really say I was in the class.
Okay. Fight that.
Emma, honestly. Sorry, please, where are we?
Only God knows what you guys are doing to yourself over there.
Doing to ourselves, Pitibawo. Kapila. Allergy, I can promise you that's not the case.
What are you guys doing? I think we need to activate the video.
15 years.
Let's focus on MPIA. Let us focus on MPIA.
Number one.
Please, what's the topic that we are discussing?
I'm not only saying anything about what they are doing.
I don't mind. Honestly, we can be here till 4. You mind at all.
Me, I'm taking coffee, so I'm not sleeping.
Please, what's the next topic? I'm available.
So we're talking about changing media landscape now.
Changing media.
Landscape.
Mr. Lekon.
That's the topic. Changing media landscape.
Yeah.
We don't have it anywhere.
See, this is why we need to
Why
do
that?
tutorial for
I'm
a
not the
long
one
time,
that
because I
laptop
don't
man taught us.
understand what you are saying. I'm lost, I swear.
Okay, but wait. Dr. Lontola and Ibrahim did not teach us, Abi.
Okay, discuss the impact of
Oh,
changing
they might
media
not start.
landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This question number one. I mean, no more though. Ask
But
the
Shebi, that's Dr.
Mr.
Mr. Sam taught us,
internet
Abi.
age and social media ni òyìnbó ló kọ lò now.
Yeah,
Advent of
he taught
internet and
us.
social media ni. They just use stupid English.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so
explain.
let's take it as it is then. Oh yeah, so because for me I wasn't in the class. You guys were doing the discussion. So yeah.
I'll be you. I just 1 minute.
Thank you.
Yes, now can I? Hello. Can anybody?
Scholar Kafi, you want to take over, please? Not really, but I have an idea. It's just like well, they said the impact of changing media landscape and national communication. Okay, so we all know what changing means, like right movement or transition. Yeah. So media landscape just has to do with how technology is changing the nature, scope of media practices in the global communication system. Of course, we all know that it is not only by watching TV or listening to all these, they call them news agencies, right? Yeah. Listening to what new agencies has before you can get or understand what is happening in the world. Of course, we know with Google, you can easily go on the internet, right? See,
yeah,
I always use NSAS, but you don't have to use it as an example. I'm just saying it so that you guys will understand it in depth, right?
Sorry,
So we all know.
Sorry, just before you continue, I think it's important. I just want to say, it's been coming to my mind, like these NSAS, we really need to be very careful.
I'm not saying you guys should use it.
No, I'm not saying
I'm just
it's not.
making you guys understand.
No, it's not in particular this class. I'm just saying that lots of people do not buy into it. So if you are talking to a lecturer about how if you just land people in trouble.
I'm not saying anybody should go and write answers.
It's not you. I'm just saying generally, like in other countries. Let's just talk about how we use NSAS as example.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say a riot is happening somewhere. Without you having to even go on the news, you can easily get the information on social media. Let me just put it that way. If people are coming out to protest for a good cause, like Chibok girls, when they let me use that one since that one is still okay. When they kidnapped some students in school in the north, we all could see it from Twitter, from Instagram, even before you could even sit down on your TV, to check. And they now say that the media in many countries have now reached a point where they set agenda for the nation and its citizens as a result of the ever advancing media technology. Well, this is just to say that in many countries now, we now have to I don't know, but I really don't understand this context. But if I'm to say how I understand it, this one that many countries have now already said that agenda for the nation.
Like the media is now influencing a lot of things that both the government and the people are doing.
Yes. And now you don't even have to depend on the traditional methods and practices, right? Even journalism now, investigating journalism. In fact, you don't even have to get details from a journalism before you even know the in-depth of a particular issue or of a particular situation. That's what I'm just saying. And now, the media can make you become great and it can make you become useless, in the sense that it has destroyed careers of politicians, business people, and celebrities. Like, I don't know if we are all conversant with the news of where a journalist came and said it on social media that NASCO conflicts has been the one, funding the Boko Haram guys. I don't know if you guys are all aware. So something like that, of course, it will affect NASCO business, at least for that time. I don't know if you understand. It can make it, maybe their shares or whatever to go low and all that. And then even destroying careers of politicians. We all see what Buhari is doing in Nigeria currently. Yes, no. We all see what's happening to Buhari now. Of course, because of what he has been doing, you can easily know, even just checking on your phone, Google everything, you can easily see the activities of this current government, what they are doing. And it has really portrayed Buhari not to, in quotes and on quotes, not be a good, president. Even now, let's take it out of Nigeria, US, the way they portrayed, Donald Trump, and that made him to even lose the last election. I don't know if you get what I mean. So that's just what I see from this question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Mr. Razak. Okay, so I'm just going to.
Okay, please go ahead.
I'm just going to put I say pinpoint, bring our attention to, because it was Sam Ejiomi that taught us this internet age, basically. So in the class, he said that he didn't say for a fact that it will come out very well. Like if you are going to answer a question on digital divide, so if he's going to have any contribution to the exam questions, I feel like digital divide and that topic that he gave us, that assignment he gave us, is something that we might want to look into. And for the digital divide is under the same topic we are treating, in case you are wondering what I'm saying. So he was basically saying that it's a social issue, basically, and it's like, if you want to discuss it, talk about three things. That's the point of access to the internet, quality of the internet, and the capacity of devices available for people to use. So I just wanted to add that because I feel like she has already explained it the way that I would have. So I'll let you.
Okay. I can't really delve into this other than to mention what I have seen or what I have been able to understand. The changing media landscape, what you guys have said, yes, it has shown how technology has changed the media in the scope of international communication, how it has influenced. But again, maybe taking the impact one by one, like, okay, maybe we have it listed. Do we have it listed somewhere? Like, okay, let's say these are 5 impacts, that we can speak or talk around. Do you have it listed anyway?
I don't get 5.
We're supposed to discuss the impacts of this changing media landscape. Do you have the headings listed, or will I say the sub-headings listed that we can use in discussing?
Discussing. Alaji.
I'm with you.
I get what Alaji is saying. Are you like, maybe, like we should put like key pointers I want to key build pointers, on.
Right?
Okay, so just 1 minute.
From what you discussed now, good, I understood the concept of changing media landscape. Thanks for that. Yes, we also talked about the impacts, but
so we
again,
can
it's
say
just
that the internet has revolutionized mass media.
Okay.
Because in the sense that now people have easy access to the internet, not just the internet, they have easy access to any form of information they want to get right at the tip of their fingers. We can also say that the internet has paved way for numerous businesses. Because this is something that's one thing that he said in class. He said it has paved way for numerous businesses. He also said that we can also use the advanced nature of media technology has greatly influenced international communication. He also said that the world is smaller than it has ever been. That's the new media environment.
The world is smaller than it has ever been because of
Globalization.
yeah, that's globalization. I'm basically reading it out from the notes. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Please, you can share this in the chat here. But
I'm
it's
sure
good we have it
typing.
like this, so
Is
we
MM
can have
there?
it itemized. Yeah, MM
I'm
has
sure
refused
she's
to.
typing. I'm waiting for her to type. Let me see if I can screenshot.
She has
She's not
dropped
typing again.
something. No, she has dropped it now.
She has
Okay,
dropped it already.
wow.
Let me go and
Yeah.
screenshot and
Social
beg.
media landscape helps businesses form relationships with clients or potential clients by engaging with them. Connecting the customers and potential customers positively impacts your relationship with customers as well as increases brand loyalty. So, yes, this is good. But the idea again, like I said, is let's just have the bullet point listed, and so we can discuss around that anyhow
We
we
chat.
want. Yeah, in the chat. So we can move to any other one now. So which one are we moving to? It looks like we're going to Nuiko. Why would Nuiko
Sorry,
take
what
number 2
Abuja
and 4 here?
That one is too much.
I think it's the okay. Wiko is actually very straightforward. I think Wiko is straightforward.
I think
Wiko
it's
is
looking straightforward though.
Huh?
And it's something that I think is really straightforward, and I think
Yeah,
it's
it's,
something we should.
and it comes out every year. So I think that's a bonus question.
It's a regular customer. Why would Nuiko take 2 questions out of 4? That's not fair. Oh.
It took 2 questions.
Oh, it's too much.
From this one, yes. Here's the question. Critically examine the arguments for and against the Nuiko. To what extent do you believe that Nuiko has achieved or has been able to achieve its purpose? So
You want us to treat it, me?
I think we better let's treat it to.
Oh yeah, no.
At least I want to treat it to a fair.
So New World Information and Communication Order.
Let's go there.
Okay, so it was a political proposal for him. So like, are we the one taking it? Abi, you are taking us?
You are taking it to. I have this understanding about it. At least what I have is what we had. Some people there,
okay, so Wiko has
you.
to do with the criticism of the third. Okay, before I start reading from notes, let me just explain basically the way that I know it. So basically, like it was basically third world countries breaking away from advanced countries to come and form their own organization. And the reason they did that was because the Western countries were basically sidelining them. When they were putting out news, they would pay little to no attention to the news that were coming from Africa, all these things that they felt was important for them to be projecting to the world. They won't project it. And they didn't like the light in which they were projecting the little things that they were projecting as well. So they basically didn't have access to those technologies that were supposed to help project those news the way that they would like it projected. So they broke free and came to English I'm looking for. Came to form Wikosha. That's like the summary of the entire story. So now I can now go into details. Is the criticism of the third world about the unequitable access to world communication. That is when the news was something about the West, they would put energy, they would spread the news, they would put all the details. But it was something coming from developing countries. It was going to be little to minimal effort. They were controlling the news in a way that it wasn't fair on the developing countries.
So it's looking like Nuiko is one of the reasons why we are able to study international communication.
No, what?
So it's looking like NWICO is one of the reasons why we are studying international communication.
Yes, exactly. And their aim was to create a new major world where there will be balanced flow of information. Yep. Without any cultural colonialism, imperialism. That is just like, they wanted to create a world because they were paid little or no attention to. They now wanted to create their own world whereby they will be balanced, that is equality in the flow of information, without anyone trying to colonize them or criticize them or imperialize them. So WICO was textually formulated by Tunisia's information minister, Mustafa Maidmedu, who submitted working paper number 31 to the McBride Commission. Now, the McBride Commission was formed by UNESCO. So basically, they asked McBride to come forward with a paper. This is the agitation of the people. What do we do? Come forward with a solution. So that McBride Commission is where the entire WICO idea emerged from. So when he presented WICO to them, a new world order was basically formed. Now, let's not forget that the fundamental issue here was the imbalance in international communication.
But I thought McBride was actually the promoter.
And that's what I said now.
Oh, I thought you said it was, you mentioned a different name.
I said textually formulated by Tunisia's information minister, who submitted the working paper to the McBride Commission. But you can just put emphasis on the McBride Commission because that's the main focus that everybody pays attention to. Yeah.
Okay.
So WICO gave rise.
Also is a person, and is actually the McBride. Is a Nobel laureate.
Yeah.
Human rights activist. Okay.
WICO gave rise to two major needs in the global communication: the need for international semantic sophistication and the need for third world self-assurance. This thing is plain to you.
Why is it plain to you? You can do it.
And they look my notes. Make I use material, babe. Use your notes. There are some things that are not in the material. Okay. So, sorry, just 1 minute. While we're waiting for Faida to get back together. Please, the debate on WICO has been the criticism, basically. So, advocates for WICO, basically, are these 5 things that are here. The WICO tries to, so I feel like we can pay attention to these D words that I'm going to mention. WICO tries to promote democratization of global communication by. Not it today. They know now. They know, okay. By addressing the problem of imbalance in news flow. So the first thing I said was democratization of global communication. The second one is decolonization of third world countries. Fighting for decolonization of third world countries because the one-way flow and misrepresentation of news was not sitting well with them. So democratization of global communication and decolonization of third world countries in terms of news. Then it tries to demonopolize international communication. That's another D word. So I have mentioned the democratization of global communication, decolonization of third world countries, and demonopolization of international communication, because the monopoly status of transnational corporations in terms of communication technology was perceived as a threat to the nation's independence. That's developing nations' independence. I'll butch. Coffee, let me mention the thing first. What happened? The WICO facilitates development. Who they call me? Media. So that's the 4th D that I'm mentioning. So there are 4 days. Please, did you people get that?
Democratization of
Global communication.
Yeah, I got the first 3 Ds, or the
The
first 3
first
D
one I
rather.
mentioned was facilitates development, which is a vital role of mass media.
okay, please, you share these in the WhatsApp.
That's how I'm listing it first, because I know that will type.
Okay. Oh, in fact, no, MM is starting in.
Like that.
Yes,
Why that?
mommy. Yes,
But you can
mommy.
share to me personally, Abi. I've paid though. I didn't just come to class today. Up my career.
Amina, that's you now, Abi.
Yes.
Why is your name not now showing?
I used Kemi.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay, so in this case, okay, so because we have those how do I say it? Those concerns for content now. All right, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so that first D, democratization of global communication by addressing the problem of imbalance in news flows, comes with measures to ensure a more equitable balance between these countries. So basically, they're saying, we're not inferior to you people now. Like, why are you trying to sideline us and silence us and just impose random, like, just the way this is the way that you want to portray us? And to a large extent, we all see the way the Western world portrays Africa. They will never come out and put the good parts of Africa, the beautiful part. It's always where the children are dying, where people are starving. That's always, even to this day, that's the image that they keep portraying. Like, you ask a random American, like, what they think about a random country in Africa, and they'll say, do they even have cars there? Like, you get into an argument with a white person online, and they'll be like, where are you even getting the internet to use to reply them from? Because of the image that has been portrayed. So that was basically one of the things that Wiko was fighting for, that they were trying to promote that democratization in global communication, so that there will be a balance between all of them. Then they were trying to, what's the second one? Decolonize the third world countries, because the one-way flow was causing a misrepresentation, and it was being interpreted to reflect a lack of respect for third world countries. So they were basically trying to break themselves free of any form of shackles that they were in, because the way that they were projecting them, I feel like I'm cutting shit. The way they were projecting them was causing a lack of respect for these third world countries. That's the second one. And the third one is the demonopolization. Now, because of there's a kind of monopoly to a large extent. I think I mentioned it earlier. The 4 biggest news agencies in the world, AP, AFP, Reuters, TASS, they are all in the West. There's none in Africa. There's no big news agency that we're using here. So to a large extent, there's this monopoly. There is like this centralized.
Is TASS in the West? I don't think so.
TASS is West now.
What's the phone of TASS?
Wait, continue now. USA, Britain, France. TASS is Russian now. Is that not West?
Russian is supposed to be East, though.
Oh, that makes sense. But you get what I'm saying now. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's still the big powers.
No, that we don't just go and discuss like that. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay, instead of West, using
like East and West.
Even Russia supported NWICO.
Well, people have missed the point I was trying to make. What I'm saying was that
we don't have in Africa.
Yes, the underdeveloping countries don't have that
news, like those strong news agency organizations that can help push the kind of narrative that we want to push.
Yeah.
That's the one for the demonopolization. Because the monopoly state of these transnational corporations in terms of communication technology is perceived as a threat. Then WICO tries to facilitate development, which is a vital role of mass media. Development in the South Hemisphere, the developing countries. Then the last one, just like a bonus one, WICO tries to effect a more just distribution of communication resources in the world. That is equal distribution of communication resources in the Western Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. Those are the ones for advantage, like argument for. But you know the topic, the question asks us to do for and against. So for against, these are the criticisms of WICO. Now, it will be difficult for WICO to achieve most of these things because international media institutions are in the West. I already spoke about it. I was trying to explain the demonopolization. If you cannot say you want to push out your own narrative, you want to be able to be in control of how you're perceived, and you don't have the instrument to achieve it. At the end of the day, you don't have the facility to achieve your aim. So how do you want to push forth that thing that you want to push forward? To this day, we still don't have any big force controlling the narrative of how they see us in the rest of the world. So that's the first argument for against. Now, another one is a lot of countries in the Southern Hemisphere are ruled by leaders that are socialist orientated. Like they like to control things. They like to try to enforce strict rules on news agencies. Look at Nigeria, for example. You come out now and say one thing up against Buhari, they will hit you with 10 million naira sanction. Do you get anything? If you portray them in a way that they don't like, DSS will come and carry you. Look at that journalist in Kaduna that they locked up for 10 months. So, like, you cannot, your home is not even settled. In your own, inside your house, inside your parlor, is not settled. You are forcing media outlets to portray you in a certain way. How do you now want the world to be, and you want it to be democratized so that everybody will see you in a free way, when in your own home you are forcing media agencies to see in a certain way? Then the third one, let me see. Is partial. Even after the formation of WICO, to this day, they are still putting the news out the way that they still want to, because we're not in control of everything. So the third one, I feel like this third one basically even answers the question number 3, which is, have they been able to achieve what they want to achieve? Because I don't know, but I mean, you can argue for or against, but realistically, the Western world are still the one projecting us the way they want to project us. So if you have arguments to support that WICO has been a success, please, I'll be interested in writing down your points. I will allow Scholar Razak to take over from here. From Scholar Fida. Chugban. So, all right. Please, Scholar Razak.
What am I taking over? What am I taking over? Sorry.
No, I'm finished now. I'm finished all this. I've said what I know.
You say you finished. So why are you not asking me to take over?
Yeah, I was scholar now.
You guys are the real scholars. Oh. Sorry. So you've taken us on arguments for and against, right?
Yes, sir.
So which other one do you not want me to now do?
Buttress the point.
Oh, to buttress. Oh, sorry.
That's what I said.
Okay, so are you saying I should buttress the against points now? You have the note, so wait, so just let me get it clearly. Why you buttress what you have? Okay, so
In a nutshell, Farida has finished.
she has finished. So she has
And
finished
so
now.
you do what you like with the information.
Imagine.
Fight that.
Okay. So I could recall when Professor
Yes, ma'am.
Lauren was in the class.
Please,
He mentioned,
I'll just intercom. I'll collect the other ones in school on Monday.
No, I got you, baby.
Thank you.
okay, so going back to what Professor Lauren Tola said in the class, that yes, it's still number one linking, despite the fact that we have NEWICO doing this, but arguments against them is at the end of the day, our news agency, when they are still providing or doing their reporting, they still do the extracts of what the news agency in Paris, London, New York are giving them. They'll do extracts, which means they can't go there to get their news directly. So what they will still do is they will still take the news as it is, as their own content. Another one was the fact that what we even report here about ourselves, mostly are bad news. So when we report all those bad news, so what impression are we giving these guys, these other news agencies? We give them this bad news and they take it as input. So we're going to put on their own portals too. So why should NEWICO be complaining that these guys are not projecting developing nations, in the way they are supposed to be? So I think those are the other ones I want to add to it. I hope it's clear. Is that MM again?
Yes, sorry.
I'm lost, so I like
Hey, this is your background. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, that like in two cases, one is the fact that we don't really, what's it called, present the news of those foreign news per se. We don't have our correspondents there to present our news content the way we want it, or the way it is the way the event occur. So what we will still do, for example, news agency in Nigeria, what they will still do is to wait for news agency London, news agency Paris, news agency New York, who would have cooked, the image of the interest of the national interest of that country in projecting what has happened. Let me say, for example, maybe that 9/11, when it happened, assuming you have someone there, perhaps it would have been easier for that person to say, I beg, this thing happened in US. As it is, from the total of counts, we are counting like 20,000 people who would have been died by now, or would have died by now. So, but you will wait. You wait for those news agencies to tell you, okay, the country is under control. I mean, the situation at hand is under control. We have securities at the hedge, ensuring that these are done. That's what they will tell you, first of all, in packaging the news, before telling you the bad news. So meaning, it would have made you feel good, the way they will project their own news. But you, when you now want to, the other side of it, you're taking the news from them directly. And that's why when you're seeing channels, when they are doing the local news, they will do local news. When they are moving to foreign, that's why you see maybe CNN logo, BBC logo, to tell you they are taking it as it is from those news agencies. But in our own case, what we will still report about ourselves, for example, herdsmen matter, some other smaller issues that, yes, doesn't sound so well, for one to listen to or to be heard about. And you still project that as your national news, giving these other foreign agencies the opportunity to lift the news as it is, how bad it is, and project it on their own world image. And again, this is one of those things that news agency was, trying to counter. Do we still get it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, me, yeah, yes.
Okay, so I could recall those two from what Professor Olarotola said in the past. There. I didn't write it down. So,
So if you are going to literally, sorry, Razak, if you are going to give me those two things as a point now, can you do that for me?
This is not good though.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm with my berry. I'm ready. Oh yeah. Rico. Rico, no, sure.
What did you say? Fight that.
I say you should put it as bullet points. Let me write it down.
What?
You should make it as points so that I can jot it down.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sir.
How long can give it, Twitter?
Oh yeah,
no,
oh yeah.
No. Okay, so
yes, now.
Bullet point is hold on. Number one is lifting news directly from foreign news agencies.
Getting news directly, I mean.
Lifting, will I say lifting, So lifting looks like, they are just putting it as it is. Lifting news directly from foreign news agencies.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe you can explain that better when you want to.
They're just making it. Some of them, God, they will play the video from the foreign one. They will even play it. Shamelessly.
That's what they will do. They don't have their content. They will just lift it directly, and this is it. So what that means is, even though that case is bad, is worse, they don't have it. They can't report it in their own way. No, they have to take it as it is. So again, it's coming back to ourselves again. The local correspondents reporting, bad image about the country. So what that means is they provide these foreign agencies with this situation as bad as it is. So in the interest of the nation, it is going to counter what Mexico is trying to check. So how do I put that in summary now? Reporting, or would I say bad reportage? Let me see. Local bad reportage. Let me see. That's really key into what I wanted to local.
Maybe you should just mute yourself. I don't know.
Maxis, are you there?
Maybe you should just. Ola is not nice.
Oh no. Okay, so yeah. Okay, you can say bad reportage about home country or local bad reportage, whatever way. So at least you can elaborate on that, So if you still have our local reporters or local correspondents reporting ourselves, especially, the way this situation is that bad and presenting it, even worse or so. And we are giving these foreign reporters or correspondents things to report, in this manner, and which is, one of the things the NUICO is trying to check. It means if that persists, then we can't, NUICO can't achieve what it's set to achieve. Okay, so that's two for me.
That's number one. Number two, uncle.
It's true now. I mentioned two.
Me ò read me, but the second one, I feel like I can't share. But take your time on Wiko. And they can move. Okay.
Which one do you have? Wait.
I have the lifting of news directly from news agencies. And every other thing that you said, I said
that is one. Then the bad reportage about home country.
Oh, actually.
So if we are reporting ourselves, that bad or what?
Against now, really, how we portray ourselves is important. Ẹjọ́ torí ọlọ́ ẹ bá wa mí ìtara yìí, ọlọ́run ní balẹ̀ bá ń jẹ. I think it's from you. You're the only one that was not on mute.
Your two Zoom is completing each other. You have to have one.
Please, this class cannot end though, because it's now that my brain just started opening. Please find solution to the noise. Thank you and God bless.
Amen.
Please, next question.
What extent do you believe that
international number two question number one
purpose?
Number two. Me or you? Change first question. With appropriate examples, compare and contrast any two of the following pairs of theoretical frameworks in international communication.
Where is the question?
We have. Do you want to check the question? I'm coming. Let me find the question and snap. 1 minute, please.
Okay.
Take your time. Yeah.